the quarterbacks come from. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah.
And Cutcliffe will develop you, too.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, here, let's come back here. Tri-City Sports Now. We don't need no stinking bumper music. We do need Caleb Calhoun. And for Asian House Vols Talk with Caleb Calhoun. And of course, he runs the website All for Tennessee, which is, bar none, the best off-season Tennessee website there is. And we'll get to why here in just a second. He's got a great story up now of historical interest, like he always does this time of year. But I do want to answer. I was looking for something to write about my morning take, and I mean, it seemed like with all the sports going on, Kumar Rocker really got a lot of headlines last Saturday when he no-hit Duke, the 19 strikeouts. Basically, I mean, it wasn't a clincher for Vandy to go to the College World Series, but it was the game that turned that regional around against Duke, let's face facts. And it got me thinking, wait a minute now, Vandy does have a better baseball program than Tennessee. You've got to give them that. They've taken 5 out of 7 football games. They don't have the better basketball programs. No, they finished last place in the SEC, but the women did chase away Holly Warlick, and the men nearly beat Tennessee in the midst of their 20-game losing streak when Tennessee was number 1. Went to overtime, and if Grant Williams doesn't hit one free throw somewhere along the way in regulation, they probably win that game. So I'll ask you, does Vanderbilt now have a better athletic program than Tennessee? Caleb Calhoun of allfortennessee.com?
I don't know if they have it right now. I think they've definitely, you're right, baseball, they're significantly better. That kind of cancels out because softball is significantly favors Tennessee.
Okay.
But I would argue you have a good point with basketball and women's basketball, well, with football. We'll have to see this year how Vanderbilt is as a program because Kyle Shermer's gone. I wrote about this week, funny enough, how Brad Crawford of 247 Sports has the Vols going 8-4 and just assumes Vanderbilt as a given win. And I don't know how you can assume Vanderbilt as a given win when they won the last 3. And by the way, the last 2 weren't even close.
Yeah. Now, I'll say this. You asked me, you put a gun to my head right now, who's going to win? Because there's no Shermer, because it's in Knoxville, and I'm not big on home field advantage, but even so, I'm taking the Vols. I am. I mean, they got the players returning, et cetera, et cetera. You know, if you absolutely right now had to have me pick, I'm taking the Vols right now. But then, okay, so Vandy's now taking 5 of 8 instead of 5 of 7. You know, after the last 82 games were 71, 9, and 2 for Tennessee. There's been a changing of the guard and all this. And I'll say this. I looked up there's all sports trophies. And Tennessee does rank a little bit higher in the standings. I think Florida won the all sports trophy in the SEC this past year. But what killed Vandy, and I was really surprised on this, their women's sports are down. They finished 14th in women's sports. They actually finished ahead in points in men's sports ahead of Tennessee, but in women's they were dead last in the conference. I was really surprised about that because traditionally Vanderbilt has very good women's tennis. They've won national titles, but obviously that's not, their women's tennis program isn't doing enough to bring up everybody else. So take it what you will, but yeah, go ahead.
And yeah, what I would say is interesting, we were talking about this off the set, where there's been a changing of the guard where, when football first started as a sport 130 years ago, it was a gentleman's game among Ivy League elites.
Yeah.
And you almost wonder, it's not that anymore, but you could see the academic schools in Division I really making a push because, it used to be the wealthier, the wealthier kids who do better in school would do better off going to the more elite schools. Now there's an advantage if you are a lower income guy and football is your only way out. Well, you really should be considering Ivy League, or not Ivy League, but those really good Division I schools where you can still play on national TV. And hey, if football doesn't work out, you got a degree from Vanderbilt, or you got a degree from Stanford, or you got a degree from Duke, and particularly Duke or Stanford. I know you said off air you played for Duke, and I agree. David Cutcliffe or David Shaw is going to coach you very, very well, and they will at least prepare you for the NFL if that comes your way. But if it doesn't, you still graduated from Duke or Stanford.
I've said that on the air a million times. I mean, that if I could go anywhere and play football as a quarterback, just ask Jones going to the Giants. it would be Duke because of Cutcliffe, because of the academic, and I'm playing in the ACC. Do I have, big crowds in front of me? Well, you know what? I'd rather have the $100 million contract in the NFL, to tell you the truth. But by the way, I want to take exception. Those 19th century football games before the forward pass, they were pretty rough right there. There were a lot of fatalities. And by the way, check out the history sometime of Lehigh Lafayette and the disputed 19th century game. It's pretty bitter right there from the so-called gentleman's game. It wasn't golf. Just trust me there, okay? Anyway, we're talking...
I agree, which is why I love Teddy Roosevelt for saving football in
Yes.
1900.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, there you go. And we were taught that in 5th grade as well, in PE class and all that. I had a teacher who was really emphatic of telling us that Teddy Roosevelt saved football. We're talking to Caleb Calhoun of allfortennessee.com, who sometimes I think saves all good journalism covering the Tennessee Volunteers. But as I've often said, he is real. I mean, just when you have those rainy day topics, those off-season topics, and I love this. Vols top 10 game-winning TD drives in history. Going back in memory lane when you do this. Like I said, this is why you read allfortennessee.com at this time. And tell us, what in your opinion is the most memorable game-winning touchdown drive in the history of the Tennessee Volunteers?
I ended up putting number one, the 98 Arkansas game, because everybody remembers the Quinn Turner fumble. But what people forget is the drive before that, Tennessee had gotten stopped. And they couldn't get anything going offensively. And then they got the ball at the 50, and they didn't put the ball in the air once on that next drive. In fact, not only did they not put the ball in the air, Travis Henry was the only person to touch the ball, and he pounded Arkansas all the way down to the end zone for the game-winning touchdown at that point. And it was one of the best. It was everything you loved about Tennessee football in the 90s, or traditional old-school football, where they just ran it and ran it and ran it, and Arkansas could not get any push on the line at that point.
I can see that. I'm thinking modern day has to be Dobbs to Jennings to beat Georgia in last few years. Yeah, that was the last hurrah for Butch Jones. I remember that and such. But anyhow, I got to go with Jerry Bonkowski here in just a little bit, so I'm going to have to hold on my question about comparing Malcolm Turner and Phil Fulmer to next week. Remind me to ask you about that, and that's something, because we were talking about why Vanderbilt might be competing now with Tennessee, and one of the things I mentioned back in the day, how Fulmer was thought to be, we got to get rid of majors. New school right here, Caleb Calhoun. Well, you look at the ADs, G League president versus the old coach. Which one is modern? Which one is old school? And could this be a reason why Vanderbilt is now more competitive than ever in terms of sports with Tennessee? It seems. But that's a topic. I've only got 10 seconds left in this segment for next week. Jerry Bonkowski, the race in Michigan and NHRA. He's up next. All right, there we go. I will talk to you next week, okay? And yeah, give me